Welcome to Job Tales, where we dive into unique careers with those who live them. I'm Laura Leoncini, and each week I bring you inspiring guests from fields like science, medicine, the arts, and beyond. Today I'm thrilled to introduce Richard Lothian, a casting director with a remarkable eye for talent and storytelling. Richard plays a pivotal role in bringing characters to life on screen and stage, shaping the creative world behind the scenes. Richard, welcome. Let's start with what it means to be a casting director.
Well, I suppose the easiest way to explain what I do is I work in the film industry, so film, television, animation, all sorts of media, really. I essentially get hired by producers
Yeah.
who are seeking cast. So I would then take their script and I break that apart for myself, and then I collaborate with a lot of the creative team to help find the right people for the right roles.
Okay.
I think that's the easiest way to explain it.
That's the easy way to play. Yes. So casting director. So it means that you have a wide range. In other days we would have said a Rolodex of contacts. What is the key in your job? Is it the networking? Is it having a large database of actors? Is it the connection to the productions and the producers and directors? What makes your job successful?
Well, I think that's a very big part of it, the networking, and it's certainly how the work comes in. It's getting to know the producers and the people who are creating and telling stories. But I think what makes a good casting director, as you say, is having a wide network of actors that we can consider. And I
Mhm.
mean, I'm based in Cape Town in South Africa, and I'm very well versed in the actors that are around me, the pool, what they're capable of, where the really strong talent is, and inside all of its complexities, who would be the right people to present to directors and producers and convince them that these people would be able to bring their vision to life. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's very much social sport, I
A
guess.
social sport, yeah, that's the very least. Now,
Yeah.
in order to get a large network, you need to build it, right? So, and I'm sure that this is the hard part. Like, how do you get in? How did you start?
I think everyone who is practicing as a casting director probably has their own story of how they got into it. But for me, I've always been very passionate about acting and performance. So that was my first point of call. I went to go and study drama and acting for film and camera specifically. And
Okay.
while I was there, I connected with all of the casting directors that were around me. And, I was visiting their studios to go for auditions and very quickly started asking if there was something I could do to work in their office to get to know how they do things. And
Okay.
so it started with commercials, and I was doing a lot of studio directing for some of the casting directors here. And so my education as a casting director was sort of running parallel to my education as an actor.
I see.
And
Okay.
I was very fortunate to land a couple nice roles. And once I stepped off, I approached one of the casting directors that I respected massively and told her if she were to teach me everything that she knows, then I will stop going to castings so as not to have any sort of conflict or bring any conflict into her house.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was very fortunate that she agreed, and that was the beginning of quite an education. Yeah,
Amazing. So, in the meantime, you were doing jobs as an actor, right? So you
that's
were,
correct. Yeah.
right. So you were acting at the same time you were learning job of casting director. What is the link between a casting director and casting agencies?
So a casting director is essentially brought on as crew. So we would be
Uh-huh.
attached to each individual production. And as the casting director, we are given the information that we would need to present the right actors. And that would be through auditioning or self taping. But essentially, it falls to us to kind of create the brief of the character, which we would then present to casting agents or agencies or managers. And the casting agents would essentially present the artists that they feel are best to me, which I would then select out of that pool to
Hmm.
audition. So the terminology is weird, but it's quite a big difference. We are part of the crew, and the agencies work
External,
more
yeah.
with and for the actors.
For the actors, yeah, right. So, do you
Mm.
always go through agencies, or do you also directly connect with actors?
When it's a big job, we certainly try and keep the agents as involved as we can. And for anyone who wanted to be an actor, I would always say that would be the first point of call. Find yourself a good agent.
Uh huh.
But
Yeah.
from our side, if we know that there's someone who is specially requested by production, and we have previous experience with them and have their contacts, then we'll go straight to the source and
Hmm.
we'll chat to them, but we always keep agents involved. So even if we are directly requesting
I
actors,
see.
we'll
Yeah.
usually go through, let's call them a higher power.
Yeah, because then there's all also the paperwork that comes with it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And which brings me to the next question. What kind of paperwork do you have to do? Because, of course, your job sounds very idyllic, glamorous. You get to talk to maybe A-list actors, even B-list actors are great. And everything is fun and beautiful. And then the paperwork starts. So please
Oh,
tell the
yeah.
audience, the tough part.
Well, I think even in these conversations, the tough part would always be the NDAs. So the non disclosure agreements, which would stop us from talking about too many of the productions or the details that we're
Right.
working on. And depending on the size, that would also have to go to talent and managers. But otherwise, we also play a part in the negotiations. So we find out what production has in their budgets, and we would take that to agencies and negotiate sometimes on behalf of the production. But that's where things get pretty tricky. That's as we're negotiating contracts and getting around the legalese of it all, that we're protecting production ourselves and the artists at the same time.
Right.
Um, and I wish that I could say it's a glamorous life to meet all of the big stars. We are incredibly lucky that we have such amazing talent in South Africa that does come and work with us in studio to audition. But for the most part, you'll find us in our little box or in front of our computer. We're not usually the first call to the red carpet, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I see what you mean. Damn, man. So once I was thinking, like, what could I do to not be in front of the computer? And yeah, so that,
Sorry, Laura, this one might
yes,
not be it.
that dream is gone now. Yeah. What other myths, are revolving around the job of a casting director?
The biggest myth is, and it might even be a self-perpetuating myth, is that we make choices. So I think we would also like to think, oh, we're the absolute last call. We are choosing who's playing this role in the film.
Uh huh.
But really, our job is to find the best candidates and then to present options.
Hmm.
So we're then looking to the producers and the directors and working collaboratively with them to find the best people. Sure, we can make recommendations, but we're certainly not making the final call.
Who makes the final call?
Oh, even that is a mystery sometimes.
It's a mystery.
I'd like to say it feels like for film, it's director's call, but it's very much between the directors and producers. I think for
Mm,
television, the producers usually have a wider eye of what everything that is needed.
mm,
So, but
okay.
if I had to
It's different.
collectively put it on producers and directors, they're making the final choices.
Yeah, which makes the job of an actor very difficult because they might be the most, skilled actors, but if it's not within the director's or the producer's taste, they're not gonna get the job, right?
Absolutely. And there are so many moving targets. I mean, even while we're briefing out looking for something quite specific, things can change. There are so
Hmm.
many variables. Someone selected that's taller or shorter, or to find the balance or the alchemy and chemistry. It's
Hmm.
a constantly shifting goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding. I'm thinking about, your job, what you do from the moment you have the script. Do you break down the character and, each character that you read on the script? Do you actually get maybe a brief from the production, or how does it pan out?
It's often different from production to production, and everyone has their own way of going about it. For myself, the first thing I do when I receive a script is I create an IOA, which is an order of appearance.
Okay.
So I'll go through every single, well, as I'm reading through the script, I'll note who these characters are, what their relationships are, basically do a little character bio for each one of the characters. And
Okay.
that'll sort of be the starting blocks of what will become a brief later on down the line. So that'll give me a very sort of a skeletal look at how many people roughly I'm looking for, and some of how the characters need to interact and match together. But then from there, it's to take it to the directors and producers and go for all of the other variables that we could potentially look for. If our lead's a little older, do we want their children to be a little bit younger? This person's chemistry will work better with that person. So it starts with an IOA for me, but by the
Hmm.
time we are briefing out and sending that to the agencies and the actors, we've usually got a pretty good idea of the individual characters.
Okay. So that means, yeah, I can see why you are part of the crew, because in order to do this breakdown, and yeah, you need to be paid for it, right? So you can't just say, okay, this actor is going to be hired, hence I'm going to get my pay. So that makes it, yeah, you're very close to production. So how do you get hired by a production?
A lot of it, I think, is at this point reputation. So
Okay.
I'll call myself the new kid on the block when it comes to South African casting, in the way that my company, Richard Lothian Casting, has only been around for almost 5 years.
Okay.
But before that, it was 15 years with the likes of Krista Schamberger, who has done incredible things, a two-time Emmy winner. And by working quite closely with her, the producers have, I think, gotten an idea of my work ethic.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, at the end of the job, essentially, I audition like everyone else for the
Hmm.
work. I'll get a meeting along with a couple of other casting directors, and
Okay.
I'll go into an office and pitch for why I believe I'm the best person to cast that job for them.
Okay. Usually, what would you say? What do you say? Why are you the best for that job? Besides
Well,
for, reputation, but yeah, what makes your reputation good?
I think, or at least what I believe, puts me apart from some other cast directors is rare. No, that's not fair. Everyone who's doing this job has incredible passion for their work.
Yeah, yeah,
I
for sure.
find because I spent so much time as an actor, I'm very close to the struggles that actors face,
Mm,
and since the industry has started evolving away from in person as well, I feel most of my communication is with actors who have a need and a way that they feel they could best put themselves forward. And I think I feed that well. So
okay.
I try and keep studio auditions going as much as I possibly can. I like to take a little time with the actors, and I very much believe that it's what the actor brings into our space that we can work with to get the best result, rather than me telling them what to do. And I think that's, I believe I create a safe space for actors certainly to do their best work. And then I think I'm a little obsessive on the producer director side. So I'm very, it's very important to me that I'm
Yeah.
getting what they're looking for.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's it's excellent. Yeah, it's a great point that being an actor yourself, you know the struggle and you know the process. Yeah, you get in their shoes basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
while still doing the interest of the production, of course, because there's both ways.
Absolutely. And yeah, if you're not making the production and the director's film, then, well, you're not going to work much. You'll
Yeah,
see, you'll make some actors very happy, but no, I think we're there as collaborators.
yeah.
We're really there to make the director and the producer's vision of the film they're wanting to make.
Yeah. Do you also, take care of contracts for actors, with the production and then what else? Yeah, what else do you follow? After the cast is set and the actors have been chosen, what is your role?
So I try not to put the sort of final signatures on contracts. I feel that's quite important that there's that communication between agents and producers, but I will help as far as I possibly can, which in my experience has been deal memos. So that's just making sure that everything that has
Hmm.
been agreed on through the negotiations is put on paper, and then we're looking for the final signatures just to make it so. But after the artists have been cast and they are in the show, and theoretically it doesn't happen often enough, but let's say we have the whole cast together before the cameras start rolling,
Hmm.
we keep a very close eye on all of the call sheets. If anything changes, if we need to do a recall or a recast, we're always on hot standby for that. I also stay in communication with agents just to make, once people have had a bit of time on set, to see how they're feeling, and to get an idea of what these sets are like. I also try and set up table reads before the start of production so that we can hear the ensemble all coming together and those voices being read. And if I'm very, very lucky, I'll manage to get a set visit in. And that's while the cameras are rolling. It's one day where we'll go and spend some time on set and see everyone doing their amazing work.
Hmm.
But by the
Okay.
time we get there, we're unrecognizable to the crew.
Right.
So we're those guys.
Yeah, you were talking about call sheets and unforeseeable. So, can you give me some examples of some unforeseeables that you had to deal with? Because I can imagine it's mostly about unforeseeables or change of
It's
plans or cast getting sick or
Yeah, and thank goodness it's different kinds of sick these days. But yeah, I mean, it's things change so quickly. It might have been that a location wasn't available, and they've suddenly had to move, and suddenly an actor is unavailable on whatever day it's moving to.
Hmm.
We've had experiences where the weather has changed quite dramatically, and in Cape Town, that can happen in the space of a day. But
Hmm.
a good example of that was on quite a famous pirate show ages ago. It was really important that we had a day without a breath of wind, and that is not something that we get often in Cape Town.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, the day just had to keep shifting until we found a day that didn't have any wind. And I mean, in the industry, there are so many of those things. Like you
yeah,
say, it could be sickness, it could be weather, it could be locations, it could be that the one of the other actors wasn't available, and suddenly things need to shift.
yeah.
Um, or the power wasn't available in Africa that day.
Yes,
It's
I do remember that when I was living there. The
we try
load
to keep it
shedding.
exciting. The load
Yes,
shedding,
the
that is
load,
correct.
famous
Oh,
load shedding.
what
Yes.
a world.
When you work on a movie, do you, or let's say a film project or a video project, do you work on one at a time, or are you able to do in parallel different projects at parallel?
On occasion, we're very fortunate to work on a few projects at the same time. I think wherever we can, we try to have a few things going.
Mm.
I always I mean, sometimes it's not up to me, but try and stagger the work that I'm doing. There's some parts of the process that demand your full attention. And so if you get those overlapping on two projects, it can be an incredibly stressful time. So
Mm.
usually we'll try and stagger those kinds of things. You don't want to be doing two sets of callbacks at the same time.
It'd be stressful.
Not impossible, but yeah, we try and minimize our own stress as far as we can. But yes,
Yeah.
very often casting directors will be working on more than one project at once.
You're talking about something important, stress and how to manage. Now, what are the skills that are required for your job? What if you could pick a few that are really key to your profession, soft and hard? Which one would you pick?
Oh, stress management has got to be way up there, but I
Okay.
think it's a tricky question because I do think your social skills are probably the most important. How
Hmm.
you deal with those difficult situations, because there will be politics, whether it's from the actor side or the producer side, and you often need to navigate those situations in a way that you don't alienate yourself or any of the people you're talking to.
I see.
Um, and then I think you need to have quite an orderly brain. I don't think I do, but I take copious notes. At least I've got a paper trail, but otherwise to keep track of certain faces and the talent that you have seen, and often an incredible amount of recall to remember somebody that auditioned 4 projects ago but is spot on for this thing that you're looking for.
I see. Yeah. So
And
be organized. Mm.
be as organized as you possibly can. And then I hate to say it because we had such a tough time at the start of this, but some technical know how. Um,
Mm.
so much of our industry has now moved over to, I mean, they've always been like filming on digital, but now auditions actually need to happen more and more in a remote setting.
Mm.
So
Okay.
auditioning people over Zoom and being able to get material to producers and directors
Mm.
in a timely fashion is vital.
Okay. No, it's a good point. And digital world is also evolving as we speak, every minute of
True
our life.
story.
I think of AI in particular, and other technological advancements and progress. How do you see that affecting your job?
It's really interesting. I mean, I'm fascinated by AI and what's happening in that space. At the same time, I'm incredibly cautious of it because I don't think we know what it's going to be or where it's going to end up. For myself, certainly at this stage, there are forms and things that we're keeping track of. So it does help to have a little whisper in the side of your screen going, cool, these are people that you've seen before. So helping with database tracking in a personal capacity. But other than that, I mean, I still don't really know how much of the AI can get involved in what we do because it's
Hmm.
such a taste thing.
Yeah.
It's got to do with personalities. It's getting people into a room or virtually and making fine adjustments to performance.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think most really talented casting directors will tell you the best actors aren't acting. And I don't know if a machine is able to tell that sort of nuance
Hmm.
just yet. So I think for most of the actors, they're safe. And for my job, I mean, who knows? But I could be speaking a
Fair
very
enough.
different language next month.
Yeah,
But
for
for
sure.
for right now, I think it's the personal touch which makes casting magic.
Fantastic, yeah. Since time is ticking, I have one last question for you, and it's for the listeners. For the young people who would like to enter your line of work, what
Mm.
advice would you give them today?
To get into my line of work, I think it's be curious. Go out there and find out wherever you find an opportunity to be involved in this, and it doesn't need to be necessarily for film and television. There are student films being produced all the time that are looking for that special something to bring it together. And I do think you need to have a love of storytelling and characters, as well as the technical knowledge of what it takes to be in front of a camera. So I think that would be a good place to start. Practice those social skills, see what it takes to get in front of a camera and perform at your very best, and then fine tune. Get your friends, fine tune their performances into something that you would believe.
Excellent advice. Thank you very much. And with this, I want to thank you for being my guest at Job Tales, and I wish you all the best for your future career and the rest of your career.
Oh, Laura, thank you so much for having me, and to your listeners, thank you for listening. This was a real treat.
And that was Richard Lothian sharing his journey as a casting director in the film and TV industry. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to check out more on Job Tales. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. You got an idea for a guest? Then reach out to me at jobtalespodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next week for another inspiring career story on Job Tales.